First of all, I think it's clear that Vladimir Putin, A, is already losing, and B, is certainly going to lose in the longer term. The concern is how desperate he's going to become as somebody who's losing this. I mean, look, there's one guy in a bunker in Kiev with his mobile phone who's won the propaganda war completely. The other thing is, and I'd never heard of this phrase, fire and forget, until the Ukrainian crisis. But these Javelin missiles that we're giving to the Ukrainians are unbelievable. You roughly point them in the right direction and they do the work for you. That means that effectively an untrained population can take out Russian jets, Russian tanks. We saw the Russian parachute regiment get javelined and they crashed the plane. And by the way, and I don't mean this to be facetious, if your plane's hit by a missile, the fact you're wearing a parachute is of no value because the speed it went down. That's why the blitzkrieg didn't work. In terms of the assets, I think this thing that Keir Starmer, the point he's made, is reasonable, but I think he's wrong. And the reason I'm going to say that is this. The way that the United Kingdom works, we tend to hold lots of things in trust and through shell companies. That's not true of many other countries in the world. And therefore, when you expose who owns these trusts and who owns these companies, actually, there's nowhere really to shift the asset to. So there needs to be a legitimate process for people who legitimately hold assets to register them under their own name within 18 months. But then for the dodgy guys, read the former Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, they are going to really, really struggle to transfer these assets anywhere else in the world, because it's fine having a trust in the British Virgin Islands, but you can't spend £500 million on property in the British Virgin Islands. Similarly,
I'd give it a go.
Similarly, you want to go to Beijing or invest in Russia or whatever. You know, these countries do not have sufficient rule of law to protect the assets. This is a real problem for these Russian oligarchs.
I can see that, but just very briefly though, but they're being given time though to do something about it, which to me seems a little bit.
It's not so much they're being given time; it's everybody who holds an asset under a foreign trust is being given time, and that includes a large number of people who are not dodgy. The critical thing, I think, is going to be when you expose who of these people, which of these assets is associated with Putin.
So you think the exposure will make a difference?
I do.
Emma?
I think my definition of dodgy expands beyond simply in cahoots with Putin. So I'm not that fussed about people owning assets who don't want to tell us they own them. Why not? Show off. That's what I'd do. You know, have a bit of bling. So on the wider thing, I'm not a defence expert. I'm not going to pretend I know what should be happening. I'm going to use a phrase now that I thought would never pass my lips, which is that Boris Johnson has better intelligence than I do right now.
My God.
I know, right?
Are you sure?
On this very specific point.
Yeah.
I have to hope that the decisions being made about things like no-fly zones, about the kinds of equipment that we can help with, the kinds of alliances that we can forge with our European allies, with our NATO allies, with other countries on the borders of Russia, are the right strategic ones. I think there's been an awful lot of jumping because we all see the bloodshed and we all see the just horrendous situation. Something must be done is our immediate response. The question is, something must be done isn't always do anything. So I'm really hoping that wiser heads are saying, yes, something will absolutely be done, but let's make sure it's the right something.
Yeah, we need to sort of communicate with the Russian people and give them a real good heads up on our take on the situation, but of course it's propaganda. What do you think then, if you look at other world leaders, so for example Joe Biden, I mean, he doesn't seem to be that interested in anything, does he?
Well, according to his State of the Nation speech last night or this morning, he can't even say Ukraine. He confused it with Iran.
Oh, God.
But I am concerned, first and foremost, this is a national liberation struggle. This is a struggle by Ukrainian citizens. They are 21st century freedom fighters. So I would be very wary of looking to Biden or Boris or Western leaders and NATO at all in this, because their intervention, they're getting stuck in, will lead to disaster. I mean, I see they've already poked the bear and put it in a corner, which hasn't helped the situation. And there is a real risk of them usurping what we all need to support, which is Ukrainian citizens' struggle. And they have been so inspiring. If I was there, I'd be out with those women grating the styrofoam to make the Molotov cocktails, now called happiness cocktails, to avoid the Russian term, because that it's a really important and fantastic struggle for freedom and democracy. I would also be very cautious about Boris's exclamation of war crimes. You know, this is a very dodgy concept. What's a war crime? This is not cricket, where you can have a tribunal.
I think part of it is some of the weapons that they're using as well. So, for example, those thermobaric weapons, which are like vacuum-type bombs. And I was actually doing a little bit of research on them, and they are absolutely frightening. They are two blasts, one which releases a powdery sort of kind of gas or thing, and then that ignites, and it basically sucks every orifice and it takes the air out and causes a real serious explosion. So I think that's part of it, the sort of missiles that they're using. But the other side of it as well is that they're targeting civilian targets, which doesn't even seem...
and Western powers have got a great history of killing thousands of civilians and never being brought before these things, because these are not legal institutions. These are, war crimes tribunals are political institutions.
But
they're about backing the West's moral authority and grandstanding.
And I don't disagree with any of that. However, you cannot get away from the fact that Chechnya is in the Russian Federation, i.e. literally Vladimir Putin's country, and he levelled Grozny, the capital city. Similarly, he's levelled parts of Syria where he's been involved. The reality is, nobody's worried about Zelensky beating the Russians. This is going to be an absolute nightmare for them. The question is, will they literally barrel bomb the entire country and level it? And that is a legitimate concern from Vladimir Putin.
And the other side is, of course, if we continue to arm Ukrainians, which is, for me, we feel like we need to do something, then I think you might prolong the agony and make things worse, because it looks to me that he's going for broke no matter what.
But they're going to fight either way.
Yeah, they're going to fight either way. Let's make it as much of a fair fight as we can, would be my approach. How that works, as I say, should be made by people who've studied this better than I have. But I do feel my humanity doesn't stop at the border. My desperate concern for the people of Ukraine, and actually, let's face it, for lots of people in Russia who are against this, who've been incredibly bravely demonstrating against it in what is a repressive regime. We need to show them our solidarity. And that is a political decision. I don't back down from making political stances. That is a political stance. And if you make a political stance, all law is politics and all politics is law, frankly, because that it can only be in a democracy that the politicians set the laws.